Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches.
What's required and asked of you to represent our university.
The players.
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, man.
The recruits.
Show some passion and some heart.
And those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the SEC.
We're on in to finish what we've started.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU
What
talk.
a privilege. I mean, you get to represent LSU.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Louisiana Beef Industry Council. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Sunshine Quality Solutions. Super Chevy Dealers. And Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Andre Champagne and our hosts Todd Horne, Jeff Palermo, and Glenn Gilbo.
Two great players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Tiger Rag Radio. We are going to go right to our first guest. We got an action-packed show here over the next couple of hours, but our first guest is a really special one. It is Interim Athletics Director Verge Ausberry, and it's an interview that we actually just did prior to the start of the show because he had another commitment at 6 o'clock. So let's get right to the interview with Verge Ausberry, as it's myself, Executive Editor Todd Horne, and the editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, Glenn Gilbo, getting an opportunity to talk with the new leader of LSU Athletics. All right, Interim Athletics Director Verge Ausberry. And Verge, it's good to have you on our airwaves here on Tiger Rag Radio. Usually I have to give a long title for you, so it's kind of nice just to say Interim Athletics Director. How does it feel being the leader of this athletic department, something that you've known for most of your life and you've been working with in most of your adult life?
Jeff, it's an easy transition. Just making sure that the people here at working out department are comfortable and the department is stable, and just what's good for the department moving forward positively, making sure all of our constituents know what's going on and we're in good shape, and we're just trying to move this department forward. You know, the first thing I need to do is get the football coach in here, and we've been having great success with contacts and people talking to us, and a lot of interest in this position. So that's the first thing we have to do, and continuously stabilize the department and work with our coaches, work with our student athletes, which is important to us as an institution.
So, Verge, this is Todd. You mentioned the coaching search, and obviously that's got to be, your priority right now, I would assume. And you've been given full authority from the board to lead the coaching search, as we all know. What's your timeline for naming Brian Kelly's successor?
We really don't have a timeline. We're letting the process take its course, and we started that pretty much Sunday, that timeline. We have Dr. Roos here, our president. He's here, and that's perfect. He'll be a part of helping us with that. We have that committee, and he'll be a part of that. He needs to be a part of that. So excited to have him here and work along side by side with us to get this done. We have Dr. Dalton, also the chancellor and the provost of the campus. It's going to be very important to us, especially academically, and for our student athletes and our academic center for athletes and those type of things. The big thing about it is, you talk about the process and the timing. Is now we have some alignment. We have the board, you have the president, you have me as the interim, and now we just have to go find the right person, the right coach to lead this great program.
Verge, if the search, if you find a coach who's going to be coaching through December and into January, do you feel confident that Frank Wilson can keep the class together and go through the early signing period in December, and you might not have one by that first signing period?
We're going to have something in place. Frank Wilson. Frank has done a great job of holding this program together. You didn't see any guys get out and try to say they're going to leave and not play and sit out. You look at all our recruits, have a great recruiting class, and it's holding strong, and that's important. So Frank Wilson is a big part of this puzzle that we're putting together. And then we're just going to see how it plays out. Frank has 4 big games ahead of him, interim coach, and we're not planning on just lying down and say, okay, we've got an interim coach and we can't win. We gave Frank full authority to go out there and win these games, compete hard, play hard, and see where the chips lay.
Verge, if we could go back to the committee, you've assembled a 5-man committee, but you're titled interim athletic director, but you're probably one of the most knowledgeable football minds in the country. I mean, you played the game, you understand the game, you've been in the business since your whole career. Both of your sons played major college football, one at LSU right now. What are you prioritizing when you're looking for a coach right now for LSU at this particular juncture?
A good fit, one who can relate to the players, relate to the people, have a presence of himself in Louisiana, our state, in our area. A person who could lead the program, could hire. But, it really changed. Our world has changed. We're not like the NFL. You know what the NFL is. You have the general manager, you have the head coach, you have the players. We're just the opposite. We have so much external deals now. You have the NIL, you have agents. And the thing about what we're trying to do is not only help the new coach when he comes in, but also have things in place, mechanisms in place to make sure that he's successful. That's the most important thing. How are we set up? Are we doing everything it takes to help him to be the best that he needs to be? And then just a guy who fits with us, fit what we do down here. And like I said, communication. We want the football players and football team to have fun. It should be something to have fun and enjoy themselves. And then also the leadership of that person. How does he manage the recruiting, the NIL deals? How does he manage the team itself, the practices, things like that? Just somebody to have a great command of the program, a leader of the program, where we're not going to be there day to day. He has to be the person to run that program, and that's the type of coach we're looking for.
Verge, not that you would need to, but you had a lot of respect for Nick Saban even well after he left LSU. Is he a guy you would call for advice on who he thinks is a good coach, or have you called him?
Nick and I talk about it every 2 weeks anyway. That's a standing conversation we have. The first thing I said, I'll come and pick you up to be the head coach. So that's not part of the deal. He said, Terry said she's not going anywhere. That's a commute. So, but coaches are, yes, that's somebody I talk to, and there's a lot of other people I talk to. But Coach Saban is so much knowledge about the game. He's traveling, working for ESPN, so you get to see a lot of things. You get to talk to a lot of coaches. You get to observe a lot and say, this guy be a fit. And that's one of the questions I've always asked him. I said, Coach Saban, what did it take to coach at LSU? What did it take to coach at Alabama, those type of places, these big institutions? And you always say, LSU is a 2-hand on 18-wheel job. I mean, you take your eyes off the road, you take your hand off the wheel, you'll flip the truck over. And so it's so important to get the right fit for what we're doing. Look, I said it earlier. All these coaches could coach. Every coach knows X's and O's. But then it's how do you put that into the program? How do you educate your team and your players, get them to buy in? When I was looking on the field, I just see things and the body language of players and those type of things. That's important. That's important about are they connecting to the head coach? And anybody could teach, but are they learning what you teach? And that's what we're looking for in this new position, this new head coach.
Verge, there's been a lot of coaching searches that have had a lot of controversy around them historically. When Bill Ornsberger was hired, your first coach, there was a lot of controversy with Bob Broadhead and the firing of Jerry Stovall. When Mike Archer was hired, another one of your coaches, the Board of Supervisors picked that because Joe Dean hadn't come in yet as athletic director. When Mark Emmert hired the best coach ever in Nick Saban, Joe Dean was not as involved as he was in the previous two coaching searches. So my question is, there's a lot of controversy going around now. Do you think that's pretty par for the course for hiring an LSU coach? And have you ever heard of an LSU coach or an LSU candidate taking his name out or turning the job down because of the politics that are always around? I mean, the politics down Nicholson Drive at the Capitol that are always around. That's the question.
Yeah, I think it's politics everywhere, not just in Louisiana. It's every state, every school. I think, football coaches, they coach football. They have a job to do. If you win, there's no problem. If your teams play well and you do what you're supposed to do, then there's not going to be any politics involved with it. It's winning and losing. Brian Kelly, when we made the change, it wasn't about politics. It was about, we saw the program need to take a change and need to be better than what we were seeing out there on Saturday nights. So it's not about, I don't think it's the politics that's involved with this here. I think every every search, everybody think you have all these coaches running to your program. That's not true. You got to find the right person, the right fit, and it just takes time. And to get that person, you got to sit down with them face to face. I've had communications with a lot of people in the business talking about, different coaches, different philosophies, and talking to some people and just seeing how do you keep this program where it needs to be. As I said, we're playing 12 playoff teams. Tonight, the college football playoffs is coming out. And there's going to be, 12 teams. There's going to be 2 teams listed as maybe getting in and 2 teams maybe getting out. But LSU needs to be in that conversation. I'm not saying every year win a national championship and win the SEC, but you got to be consistent. If you look at the teams last year, Ohio State, I mean, they were a team that they were 12th seed going into it, 10th or 12th seed. And they went on to play and win the national championship. And now they're going to 16 probably here soon. LSU needs to be in that position if we're going to move forward.
When you talk about the college football playoffs, it was almost college football playoffs or bust, it seemed like, for Brian Kelly, Verge, entering this year. And it seemed like he built that up himself. I mean, with a lot of his optimistic explanations about the team and the talent level being his best roster ever at LSU and the $18 million spent in revenue share and NIL for this roster. And now it appears like, I guess mathematically LSU still could make the college football playoffs, but I think it's realistically a very long shot. And that's disappointing. So what, for these final 4 games, what would you say is one thing that can really excite and bring together this disappointed LSU fan base at this moment?
I think just watching a young man compete hard. I don't think our fan base, you lose a game by, 7 points or 2 points or a field goal, they can live with that. When you're getting beat, 50-some points scored on you in your backyard and you score 18, well, they can't live with that. So the expectations are, we have to be in every game, play hard, compete. You're right. We spent that money on the roster, but I tell people, just because you spend money on a roster doesn't mean you're going to win. You got to get the right people, the right collection. Now you have the freshmen, you have your core, and you have your free agents. And it's how you blend all that together to make it work. That's the important part. It's really like an NFL system, but you really don't have, you have more moving parts, as I said earlier, the mechanisms you have to put in place. And all of a sudden you have to just do, not because we LSU, we win. It's, are we doing the right things to win? And we have the right people in the right positions to win. So those are the things that we're looking at. You look at the team. Like I said, you be careful what you buy. 32 NFL teams, only 14 make it to the playoffs. Those other payrolls out there, including the Saints, those are some high payrolls. But you have to make sure that you're getting the right people when you bring them in. Somebody told me a while back about when you look at a roster, and even the kids who get in the transfer portal, what programs are they coming from? Are they coming from winning programs? Are they coming from programs that's losing? And you have to take that into account when you're looking at players. Where are they coming from? Is the culture there, the tradition there, where they're coming from? Is a winning program? Are they leaving because, they just want to leave for no reason? Or are they leaving because it's an opportunity to make us better? I think that needs to be evaluated when every young man we bring in here in the portal.
Of the previous head coaching hires at LSU, how many of them were you closely involved with, and what did you learn from them, whether you were closely involved or just in the know? What did you learn from some of the previous searches for football coach at LSU?
I was involved with 4 of them, going back to Saban. And you just have to find, it's not an exact science, Glenn. It's like, let's remember Nick Saban when he came here. Everybody thought he was Lou Saban, first of all. Calling him,
That's right.
If you remember. And the other thing was, we beat him. And his best year at Michigan State was 9-2. And Jerry Donaldo, the coach we fired, he beat him in Independence Bowl.
Right.
He beat him pretty good.
Right.
So everybody was like, okay, well, who is this guy? Who is this person we bringing in? We knew he was a great defensive coach, but that's all you knew about him. You didn't know much about Michigan State. And back then, people didn't have the access they have to watch so many different games. So you bring this man here, and you really don't know what you have until he steps out on the field and he builds a program, builds a team, second year in the SEC championship, then wins the national championship in 2003. So there's no science to it. Les Miles was a guy, he lost his last game really bad to Ohio State, to Urban Meyer. He comes here, he wins a national championship, and he plays another national championship game. Ed Ogeron. You look at Ed Ogeron. We're going down the process. Some guys we think we had on the hook didn't sign up. We couldn't get them in the boat. And you go on and you hire Ed Ogeron. And Ed Ogeron just coached the best team in the history of LSU in 2019. So you never know how these things work out. But we want some consistency in the program. We want a coach to come in, and every year, we are close to being one of those top teams and being that top 12. Brian Kelly's first year here, he won the SEC. He played in the SEC championship game.
Won the West, right?
Yes, right. And you expect it from that point to take off. And he beat Alabama at home, and those things happen. But we have to be aware we consistently every year that we're one of the top programs. You ain't going to win a championship every year, but you got to be right up there to the top.
Verge, thanks a lot for your time. We appreciate it. We know you're busy right now. Look forward to seeing how this search develops, and good luck.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Verge.
Interim LSU Athletics Director, Verge Ausberry. We'll be back after this here on Tiger Rag Radio.
Chevy trucks have you covered when the road takes you from smooth sailing to Chevy Colorado will eat up some of the toughest terrains with 5 available drive modes. And Silverado and Silverado HD have the muscle to take you out for some serious with multiple engine options and impressive towing. While Silverado EV is the perfect combo of performance and capability, making it a snap to hitch up this electric truck and hit the road. Wherever the road leads, Chevy trucks are right there with you. See your Super Chevy dealers today.
You should call that radio station and let him have it.
Good idea. 1-800-673-5555.
I want to be under the bright lights. I want to be on the Broadway stage.
Tiger Rag Radio is on now.
And we're back here on Tiger Rag Radio. Brian Kelly is no longer on the stage. So,
man, we got to get that changed. We got to get that. When are we doing that?
Hey, did you hear Frank in the open? I had Frank in the open.
Well, that's good for you. Good for you. But it seems like it's been busy, 10 years since Kelly got fired.
It feels like 10 years, Todd. Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of Louisiana Radio Network, along with the Executive Editor of Tiger Rag Magazine, Todd Horne. Glenn Gilbo is at player interviews today as they speak for the first time since everything went down. So it'll be interesting to hear what the players have to say tonight. But we need to very interesting what happened as I told everyone at the top of the show, Verge cannot join us at 6 o'clock. And now we know why. Because he was meeting with the new LSU system president, Wade Roos, who has given him the job, according to multiple reports, as the permanent athletic director. So how about that?
With
what a day on LSU's campus, Todd.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a formal announcement is supposed to come in the next couple of days. I would assume it'll be sooner rather than later. And, it's interesting. Wade Roos, the new president, has not even been on the job 6 hours, and he already made that decision.
Well, when we heard from Wade Roos today, after he had accepted the appointment as the new president of the LSU board of the LSU system, and we'll get into that a little bit more as well, because a bit of a surprise did occur at today's LSU Board of Supervisors meeting. We all knew that Wade Roos was the favorite to be the president, and he had talked about it extensively in his interviews. Not only with the media, but with the faculty senate, students, with the LSU selection committee, about restructuring the management of LSU. If you remember back earlier in this century, prior to 2012, you had an LSU system president and you had a chancellor. Like in 2003, I believe it was William Jenkins was the LSU system president, and Mark Emmert was the chancellor, and the chancellor was in charge of really the day-to-day operations of the campus, while the president is overlooking all of the LSU campuses, the 8 of them, and now 9 with UNO joining the LSU system. So Wade Roos is named the president, but James Dalton, who is the provost at Alabama, named the chancellor today, and James Dalton will also oversee Pennington, the health sciences centers. One of Roos's arguments against him being the next president is he has not had much of a background in research, and LSU wants to become a top 50 research university. Now that's where James Dalton comes in. So that I just wanted to put a tiny bow on that. So that was the huge thing that happened earlier today. And then when Wade Roos was talking with the media, he said that he was going to meet with Verge Ausberry. He's part of now the LSU coaching search committee, or the search for a new LSU football coach. And he said he was going to be aggressively involved in that, and he wanted to talk to Verge today. So I guess as soon as he speaks with Verge, boom, he makes him the permanent athletics director.
Yeah, well, it's like we said in the interview with Verge. I mean, I told him, you've got the most experience in the country. You know football inside and out. You've been involved in this business forever. You have 2 kids playing college football, and you've hired been part of the hiring of 4 coaches here at LSU. You're the guy when it comes to needing to take this program over moving forward. I also think that Roos's background in finance and economics is huge for LSU moving forward, especially considering all of the financial challenges they're facing with the budgets moving forward, with bond issues coming up, maturing, as well as some of these buyouts that they now have to
it was
take care of.
interesting because under the old structure, the chancellor was involved more extensively with hiring of football coaches and of the major sports and so forth. But Roos is actually going to be the guy. He was asked specifically about that. And again, Dalton's more on the research side of things. So
right. And
what
Roos,
a day.
Roos is on the hiring committee for the coaches as well. So
all right, LSU plays a football game Saturday. I don't know if people realize that because so much has been happening. Mike Rodak of Bama 247 gives us a scouting report of the Crimson Tide when we come back here on Tiger Rag Radio. Don't go away. A lot going on, so stay tuned.
All the bases are covered. There's something for every age group in November at the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Join us for Rewild the Library on November 8th to plant a new pollinator garden. And bring the whole family to Game On at the library on November 15th to see how many games you can play in one day. From gaming to gardening and so much more, visit ebrpl.com for more details. Your East Baton Rouge Parish Library, proudly serving the community for 86 years.
Now, back to Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of Louisiana Radio Network, along with the Executive Editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, Todd Horne, and Andre Champagne, our producer, Tiger Rag reporter and Louisiana Radio Network reporter as well. Let's bring in our next guest. It's Mike Rodak, who covers Alabama for 247. He's with Bama 247, and he joins us now. And, Mike, what are people in Alabama making out of the tumultuous changes that have occurred here at LSU? I mean, it's seismic, right? You know, a new football coach is coming, but a new athletic director fired. I mean, what's kind of the vibe there in Alabama as everybody looks at what's happening here at LSU?
Amusement is probably the word that comes to mind. I mean, honestly, it probably pales in comparison to Auburn, though. I think, honestly, Alabama fans are probably more in tune to what's happening, down on the plains, and that's even that's been more chaotic. And I think it's the 7th different head coaching combination, in terms of Iron Bowls in the last 7 years. So there's probably more attention on that one than there is LSU, and in terms of people around here. But I don't know. I mean, obviously Brian Kelly beat Alabama a couple years ago, so I think there's a little bit of respect there for him. But at the same time, I don't think anybody's shedding tears up here that LSU is going through some issues, and it gives Alabama obviously a better chance of winning this year and next year as well. And then obviously this game is no longer going to be an annual game too. So it's not as big of a deal as the Auburn coaching situation, I'd say.
This is Todd. Alabama, of course, is coming off of 7 straight wins since that debacle in the opening game of the season against Florida State. But, you guys know a little bit about having a coach that doesn't necessarily fit, which is what the biggest gripe against Brian Kelly was here in Baton Rouge, is that he didn't fit the culture, didn't fit the school, didn't fit LSU. How did you guys suddenly make Kalen DeBoer fit and win 7 straight, including 4 top 25 victories in a row?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, he's definitely changed this year. I think he's obviously he's perceptive enough that he's picked up on the things that people haven't loved about him since he's gotten here, in terms of, they want him to coach players harder and show more emotion. And I mean, at first they were mad that he was wearing a T-shirt and a hoodie, and now they don't want him to not wear the hoodie. So, I think he's aware of what people say and what people think. I think he just did an interview last week where he talked about walking by the TVs, and he's taking pictures of what people are saying about Alabama and showing it to the players. And he definitely sees it all. And I think he's kind of absorbed that. And especially this year, players have talked about him kind of being harder, and he's used some more colorful language. Because if you've been around Kalen DeBoer, he's a very mild-mannered, kind of upper Midwestern coach that, you're right, didn't really fit what you'd expect in the SEC. Obviously, it was a much different style, than Nick Saban. So, the pendulum has swung a little bit with him, and we saw that walkout entrance before the Tennessee game where he was slapping the goalpost and clapping and all that. And, I don't know if it's necessarily, if he had written a book on his way of coaching and what he ideally wants to do. I don't know if this season is in that book, but he's definitely adapted. And if he feels like this is what his team needs this year and it's working, then he's kind of stuck with it. So, they've won 7 games, like you said. It hasn't been all pretty and clean, and obviously the last game against South Carolina was, a pretty good example of that, but they're finding ways to win. They're getting the turnovers when they need to, and 3 more games left here in the SEC for them to, kind of secure a playoff spot.
Do you think that, I think it's still at 10.5 points, the line, does that ring true for what you're expecting on Saturday night?
Yeah, I think that feels about right. I think it started at 12.5, and it's kind of come down a little bit. I think there is that unknown factor of an interim coach, and obviously a different play caller on offense too. So you just have to see how LSU reacts to that. Obviously, they're a talented team. I think Alabama's defensive coordinator and some of their players this week have already said that this is the most talented group of skill players that they've seen this year. So there's potential. I don't know if. You guys would probably know better than me. I don't know if players were not playing for Brian Kelly and now all of a sudden they're going to play for Frank Wilson and play harder. I don't know if that's an accurate depiction of it, but, sometimes when a team has a coaching change, they come out more inspired and more enthusiastic. And I think, that's probably going to be the case here. I think that's what Alabama's expecting. And it's also the unknown of, you just don't know, it might be the same plays offensively, but what are the tendencies of the new play caller compared to Joe Sloan, and how does that present itself on Saturday night? I think that's probably playing into the line coming down a little bit.
All right, I have a couple of off-tangent questions for you, and then our producer Andre has got one for you. But my questions are: how does Caleb DeBoer say family when he's talking, and does he dance on recruiting videos? And have you ever heard of the 1993 LSU Alabama game when pigs flew? Have you ever heard of that story?
I have not heard of that story off the top, but yeah, he pronounces it like a guy from North Dakota. There's been a few words here and there that you can kind of pick up on that, that Dakota accent with him. And, because people associate him with the West Coast because he was at Washington and Fresno State, but he's really, in terms of where he grew up and where he coached most of his career, is really the Midwest. So that's more what he's about. But no recruiting dancing videos. Although I will say the player that Brian Kelly danced with was Danny Lewis, who is currently a tight end on Alabama.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll play in this game because he's injured, but kind of an interesting side note there.
Well, the pigs flew when pigs fly reference came in I think it was 1993. I'd have to look back to make sure, but Curly Hallman and a downtrodden LSU football team came in, and to Alabama, taking on number 1 Alabama. I don't think LSU had won an SEC game yet. It was late in the season, like they always are, and LSU won after a Tuscaloosa newspaper had said LSU will win when pigs fly. So pigs flew that afternoon.
Well, taking flight. Yeah, it's interesting how things change. But yeah, it's an interesting rivalry. To see it kind of go away and not be an every year thing is going to be weird for me, because my first year was 2019, and just the intensity of that game in 2019 and all of the first round picks and draft picks in the field that day, and to kind of see where LSU is now. And obviously Alabama is probably not quite at the dominant level that they were 5 or 6 years ago. It's to not play that game every year feels like a little bit of a loss, but I think Alabama fans are also kind of cheering the, having to play Mississippi State every year instead of LSU with the new schedule.
Poor Bama.
Hey, Mike, this is Andre. I just wanted to ask you, Alabama is right there with LSU, kind of at the bottom half when it comes to running the ball. Is that kind of a concern going into this game? It kind of seemed like that's been a problem at times this year. Is that something that's been kind of raising eyebrows right now?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say it's been a consistent problem in pretty much every game they've played. And, they had Jam Miller out for the first couple weeks of the season. He came back, but there's a ceiling with him. He's not the shiftiest runner. He's not going to make a lot of people miss. He does get some tough yards sometimes, but it's a pretty far cry from what Alabama had, several years ago at running back. And they've cycled through some different guys. They've kind of put guys on the bench. They've, had some other guys in the field at running back. They're trying everything. And same thing with the offensive line. I mean, they've cycled through some of these games. They're playing 9 offensive linemen. And just rotating every series. So, they're trying everything they can, but it hasn't worked, and that is a concern. I don't know if you can win deep into the playoffs, especially if it's a situation where you have to go north in the playoffs if they lose and they're a lower seed, to be able to run the ball later in the season. That's going to be important, and they haven't done that very well. They've tried to manufacture it, with Jeremy Bernard, their wide receiver. So I would expect some trick plays, some kind of unorthodox ways of getting yards if they just can't line up their running back and get those yards traditionally. And they don't have Jalen Milroe, obviously, anymore. And he was electric against LSU the last 2 years. Those were his 2 best games as a rusher. And Ty Simpson's certainly not going to run the ball quite as much or nearly as much as Milroe did. So they need to find some rushing yards in different ways.
Mike, last question for you. Your thoughts on how Ty Simpson has played? Just the 1 interception. He completes a bunch of passes. The guy is, depending on how November goes, he could be a Heisman candidate finalist. Give us a sense of just I think LSU probably breathing a bit of a sigh of relief that he's not a mobile quarterback, because LSU has not been able to figure out how to stop one over the last 2 years. As you remember, Jalen Milroe just scored another touchdown in Tiger Stadium as we're speaking. So give us a sense of what LSU is facing in Ty Simpson.
Yeah, 8 rushing touchdowns in those 2 LSU games from Milroe. It's pretty crazy given what he did against everybody else. Like, Alabama fans wanted to run that guy out of here by the end, and it seemed like LSU, he just dominated. But yeah, Ty Simpson, I mean, definitely a different quarterback. He's much more of a pass-first quarterback. I think, and they've tried to really beat that into him this year too, because he wants to run. He does have that kind of gunslinger mentality where he wants to get outside the pocket and make plays and use his feet. And I think he's realized he can't do that in the SEC like he could in high school back as a 5-star prospect in Martin, Tennessee. So it's more about his mind, and he's the son of UT Martin's coach, Jason Simpson. He's a really smart football mind, much like Nussmeier. So he really gets football. He gets the decision-making part of it. He doesn't throw picks. He puts the ball where it needs to go. And, the passing aspect, and you combine that with the receivers that they have on this team, it's pretty impressive. It wasn't good for most of South Carolina, but at the very last drive when they needed him to come through, he did. And he's been great for him this year.
Should be an interesting game, Mike. Probably one of those typical LSU-Alabama games where it's close at half, and then maybe Alabama pulls away in the second half. But I do think LSU is going to play with some fight in this game, at least early on, that's for sure. Appreciate your time.
You got it, guys. Thank you.
Mike Rodak, who covers Alabama for Bama 247. We'll take a break. Man, we got a lot to get to here. Huge day involving LSU, the university, the athletic department. We'll continue to break it all down here on Tiger Rag Radio.
How you doing? This is Snoop Dogg.
Tiger Rag Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you are tuned in.
Talk LSU sports, interviews, opinions, and your calls around the Tiger Nation.
Baton Rouge was a life for me. Home with LSU Tigers.
Now more Tiger Rag Radio.
We love to score and get highlights and championships and play to win.
Tiger Rag Radio.
Back here on Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealers Studio, Jeff Palermo along with the executive editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, Todd Horne, and Andre Champagne. Guys, just think about the dramatic change that we have seen here over the last, I was just counting it up here myself, 9-10 days since Brian Kelly was fired, October 26th.
What do you mean, just think about it? Like, what else can we think about? What else can we...
but just, I mean, it is insane. It is absolutely insane that you fired a coach, the athletic director gets dismissed, you now have a new president in place, you have a chancellor in place. I mean, it's like if you went on vacation and then you came back and your next door neighbor added 2 rooms to their house while you were gone for a week. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, but you know what? It is crazy, and like we said last week, it was totally surreal then, and we didn't even know the half of it for sure. We anticipated some of these things happening, but we didn't anticipate them happening as rapidly as they did after last week's show. Because if you'll remember last week, we only knew at that time for sure that Brian Kelly had been fired. But obviously there was the avalanche that we've seen over the last 9 days was occurring on the inside much more frequently and often than we were aware of. And a lot of that's coming to light now. So it'll be make for interesting stories moving forward, I would think, for the next several months.
Well, look at just how everything fell into place, right? I mean, they sped up the presidential search selection process.
Significantly, because they weren't going to do that until April, right, originally?
I don't know if it was going to be April as far as
well, he wasn't going to assume.
I think it was at least I think you were thinking December after Thanksgiving maybe.
But
Piper Hutchinson would know for sure.
But they weren't going to start until working.
Oh yeah, he's still and Roos said today he does not know his exact timetable as far as when he will officially be president, but let's face it, he is I mean, he's calling the shots now, or some, there's a lot of somebody's calling the shots, right?
Yeah. Well,
for all this to just kind of fall into place the way it has.
Well, he's the one who made the decision and is on Verge just a few minutes ago. So removing the interim.
Well, here Andre's got a couple of sound bites here of Wade Roos talking about Verge Ausberry and what his thoughts were on him. And again, if you're just joining us, Verge Ausberry will be the permanent athletics director, according to multiple reports. Go ahead, Andre. Play what we have from Wade Roos talking about Verge Ausberry.
Yeah, so right now we have an interim director here. Heath has done an amazing job. He has a job to do at McNeese in terms of trying to have a very good basketball season. I support Heath and McNeese. But right now we have an interim athletic director at Verge, and I'm going to support him with every ounce of energy I have. I will immediately go meet with the interim AD and find out where he's at on that search and be there to support him in whatever way I can. But let's not underestimate, this brand is a global brand. This is a global brand, and a big part of that global brand happens in Tiger Stadium. So we need to make sure that we are illustrating and showing that we have the stability in place, and we need to not be afraid to say we have the best job in America right here in Baton Rouge, and we're going to go hire the best coach available for that job.
And we'll hear a little bit more from Wade Roos as well. And then in that first part, I think Matt Moscona was one of the first that probably, our good friend Matt Moscona over at ESPN 104.5 and 104.9 was one of the first to report that after Scott Woodward was fired, that among the candidates of possible replacements for Scott Woodward, Heath Schroyer, who's been the athletic director at McNeese now for a couple of years and hired Will Wade, was a potential candidate to be next AD here at LSU. That will not happen. But we will talk at the top of the hour with Jim Gazzolo, of the American Press, who covers McNeese State athletics. And we'll get his thoughts on Wade Roos, and we'll talk a lot more about that meeting that occurred that really got Governor Landry and Scott Woodward not seeing eye to eye, and we'll get into a lot more of that with him. But we got one more segment to come here with Tiger Rag Radio. Let's take the break and continue talking here about Verge Ausberry is a new athletics director and the search for a new football coach. So we'll get to that when we come back here on Tiger Rag Radio.
Tiger Rag Radio.
The details do matter. Every step, every hand on the ground, every route, everything that we do has a purpose. We are really focused, and our attention to detail is going to be unmatched.
There's another one, Todd. We got to change. He's no longer the athletics director.
I mean, what are you doing? What do you do?
Things are happening so fast. I can't keep up with them.
Oh, man.
Todd, since we haven't commented publicly here on Tiger Rag Radio, your thoughts on the firing of Scott Woodward?
Well, I mean, my thought on him being fired was it was inevitable. I think that he did some good things for LSU, and I think he did some things that are going to be harmful for LSU for years to come. In terms of financial decisions and just spending. Obviously brought in Jay Johnson, great job. Brought in Kim Mulkey, great job. I think Taft is probably happy to see him go because I think that their funding has been basically wiped out, and we'll see more about that as the 2025 fiscal year budget comes out, or the actual numbers on the P&L come out, which will be next month, or actually 2 months from now. And I think that the hiring of Brian Kelly was a huge, colossal mistake in retrospect. And I think that when you listen to the interview that we had earlier with Verge, that every criteria when I asked him what he was looking for in a coach that he named was the anti-Kelly. And I think that's why Woodward is no longer here.
It was a $100 million mistake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And usually if you're running a corporation or a business and you make a $100 million mistake, you do not survive. My biggest thing with it is I just don't like how it went down with the governor being involved. If this was something that the LSU Board of Supervisors thought on their own, that this was the decision that needed to be made, fine. But I don't think the governor's got all the information on this. And we'll get into this a little bit more about the rift between, Governor Landry and Scott Woodward. Jim Gazzolo from the American Press will join us when we come back here on Tiger Rag Radio.
Y'all ready? Yeah. Let's go. Come on.
Tiger Rag Radio is on the air.
Let's crank this thing up.
We're statewide, breaking down the latest happenings with LSU athletics.
This is us.
Hear from the coaches,
What's required and asked of you to represent our university.
the players,
Having fun and we working, baby. That's it, baby.
the recruits,
Show some passion and some heart.
and those who cover the Fighting Tigers of LSU and the
We're
SEC.
on in to finish what we've started.
It's 2 hours of nonstop LSU
What a
talk.
privilege. I mean, you get to represent LSU.
Tiger Rag Radio is brought to you by Cummins. Cummins creates power solutions that the world depends on. Louisiana Beef Industry Council. Boudreaux's Electrical Services. Sunshine Quality Solutions. Super Chevy Dealers. And Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation. Get ready to talk Tigers with producer Andre Champagne and our hosts Todd Horne, Jeff Palermo, and Glenn Gilbo.
Three great players that are better people than they are players.
This is Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
Welcome back to Tiger Rag Radio, hour number 2 of the show, and we got a lot to get to here. Coming up a little bit later on, we'll hear from Wilson Alexander from The Advocate. He had a great piece on Sunday, I believe it was. Actually, it might have been Monday. It might have been
Sunday.
it was online Sunday. It might have been in the actual paper Monday.
They still print those things?
They still do. And they still print a Tiger Rag magazine, too, which you can find
that's right.
all around Baton Rouge. And you can also check them out at tigerrag.com. Yeah, you got the basketball issue out, right?
Yeah, it just came out today. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
just disregard all the football information it has in it, because we talk about how Kelly's on the rocks and.
Oh boy! Oh well, you win some, you lose some. So we're going to talk with Wilson Alexander. He talked with a lot of people involved about what it was like with Brian Kelly running the LSU football program, and we'll get Wilson's take on that. But let's bring in Jim Gazzolo, who is who covers McNeese State athletics for the American Press. He joins us now, and when Governor Landry said last week that he did not want Scott Woodward to pick the next AD for
next
football coach for LSU. A lot of people were wondering, well, what's going on here? What does Jeff Landry have against Scott Woodward? And then, Ross Dellinger had a piece from Yahoo Sports saying how this goes back to what happened in the springtime when Governor Landry went to Scott Woodward and said, hey, let's bring Will Wade back. And that should not be new news to anyone, because if you're reading Jim's stuff at theamericanpress.com, he laid this stuff out back in March. And it's I think a lot of people, there were some people that were in disbelief or some people who didn't really buy into it. But, Jim, it looks like your story was accurate, and it's I have a feeling the rift probably goes back even before that between Landry and Woodward, but that apparently really did stoke the flames, didn't it?
Yeah, I guess I'm not the village idiot this week.
Have you been the village idiot before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you're a village idiot, but I would love for you to share with our readers the Reader's Digest version of the overall story.
Well, it goes back to actually the best way to quickly do it is they wanted Will Wade to be the next basketball coach back at LSU. Jeff Landry, I believe, orchestrated meetings and phone calls, and Scott Woodward didn't. And there were some leaks that came out of perhaps Baton Rouge that maybe Will had already taken the job at North Carolina State, kind of backing him into a corner to take it. And they made the decision then that for that moment it would not happen. But I always believed that it was in place if Dr. Roos got the job, if they could bring Heath Schroyer over in some capacity, the AD at McNeese, that the band of three would be back together. I think they liked working together. They enjoyed their company. They enjoyed the job they did at McNeese. And I think that was all part of the plan if it could work out.
Is it still a possibility, even though Wade is getting ready to start his first year or has already started his first year at NC State, that if Matt McMahon does not have a successful enough season, that is it possible that Will Wade could come back to LSU still now?
Sure, I think it's completely possible. I began the piece about it saying this is what could have been, what might have been, maybe what should have been, and I ended it with this could still be. So yeah, I could see it happening this year, next year. A lot of things would have to fall into place. I know Will Wade has a buyout that drops immensely in April of this year. I would imagine that was put in place for purposes in case. And I know he has a great love for Louisiana, and I know his family loves Louisiana, and I think with Will Wade, anything is possible.
Jim, do you believe that Will Wade wanted to come back to LSU in the moment at that time, and it was really Scott Woodward who just put the stops on it?
Yes. Yes, I believe had not for the leaks about North Carolina State been there, I think he would possibly be here right now, if not waiting one more year at McNeese.
Where do you think those leaks emanated from?
I think if I had to guess, it'd be somewhere in Baton Rouge. If I had to guess.
So
but the village idiot isn't ready to speak out on that just yet.
But if that was the case, and I'm not saying it wasn't, I think you've earned your credibility and your stripes to warrant that. But I would say that it's understandable why a certain governor maybe have become vehemently upset with a certain athletic director. But I don't think that was the only reason why he drew his ire over the last, say, week.
No, I think it was building up. I think there were other build-ups that probably go beyond just Will Wade. How's that? But I just know that's because of the McNeese angle. I just know the centerpiece of that particular. I think the works were going on as late as the night of the Clemson victory. But I just don't think that everybody was on board at the same time.
Talking with Jim Gazzolo of the American Press, he covers McNeese State Athletics. So it's been reported tonight on multiple sources that Verge Ausberry will be the permanent athletics director. How does that change the equation here if it does occur where Matt McMahon has a season where they only win 5 or 6 games in the SEC, and Will Wade is wanting to come back? And you mentioned the Heath Schroyer part. He's the athletics director at McNeese. He's the one that hired Will Wade. He's a kind of an aggressive guy. He's really trying to put as much money and community support behind McNeese, and he's done a pretty good job of getting a naming rights deal for the football stadium, for the basketball arena. A lot of things are happening there at McNeese. So if Heath did come to LSU, what role could that potentially be, and how does Verge Ausberry play into this if he's now the permanent athletics director?
That's a good question. In my scenario, Verge did not have that job, so I don't. I think Heath. I think Heath would have a role in it. I think he would. I think it would be something to do with basketball, something to do with fundraising, which he's very good at here. He's raised $11 million in the last 4 months of naming rights just at McNeese with the football and basketball arenas and some other sponsorships. That's his forte, and I think that would have to be a part of the role. Where it would fit in, I think whenever you have a new administration going in like Dr. Roos, you have some political capital that can give you a way to finagle relationships and finagle some of the operations differently. They're big on that here at McNeese. They've really created something that saved a school after the hurricane. So that's kind of where their benefits are, I guess, would be. And I think that you would figure out something that everybody would be happy with. Look, there was 100 mines in this minefield, and maybe we've cleared up half of them. But you know, we don't know how kind of a year Will Wade's going to have at North Carolina State. You know, he called me today to talk about he wanted to see how McNeese did last night. So we talked about McNeese basketball and North Carolina State basketball. So you know, it's always a possibility, and I think there's a lot of things that could fall a lot of this through. But I still think it's a possibility that today is more possible than it was yesterday.
Well, I think, and I'm probably going to kill his name, but sure. I think he kind of, based on what you just said, fits in with what Roos said yesterday or this morning about how he wanted to turn LSU more into a brand center where it was capitalizing and monetizing more and bringing more income in than outgo. And if Schuer plays a role in that, whether it involves Wade coming here or not, depending upon what McMahon does, I think you could see Schuer here in some type of brand leadership capacity. And, you know, football is king here, and Verge is probably going to make a good hire, and he's earned his position here. So if they could all work together and build an income center around the brand that is LSU. I think that all rings true.
Yeah, two things that I've always known in my 40 years of experience in the business. Winning and money make people happy. You can get along with a lot of people if there's winning and money.
Yeah, so there's no wonder that Texas A&M game on Saturday night didn't make anybody around here happy.
Yeah. And, it's the Schwarber thing is always about, he is big on branding, big on turning McNeese around. He was big on getting new money, not just old money. Where he changed the dynamics of this university was he went out and got new money and big money from that they'd never gotten before. They never talked about all these issues. So they have ideas that are fresh. Now they're not going to be as fresh in Baton Rouge. Obviously, you guys have done just about everything there, but they will give it a different tone that is interesting. And Dr. Roos, I know as a president, the one thing about him is he is huge on athletics, leading a university, because it is the optics, or as they call it, the front porch of the university. That's where the eyeballs go. That's where the attention goes, and he uses that to fix the other things around.
Jim, we'll get you out on this question, and you kind of hit on what I wanted to ask you. What can LSU fans, and I guess the LSU community, expect with Wade Roos as now the system president?
You're going to hear a lot of "Go Tigers" with a hand gesture. Whatever it means, whatever he comes up with. But other than that, what you're going to get is you're going to get a guy completely committed and completely student-oriented. He lived on campus here. He in the dorm rooms. He has pizza parties with students, his wife and him. He is really committed to the student experience and using the student experience to benefit what he wants in the educational process. And that is something that we never had at McNeese. And he will be sorely missed here by that. But that, I think, is the biggest thing. You're going to see him around campus all the time.
Did he actually live in the dorms?
He's lived in the dorms since he got the job a year ago, yeah. He lives in a dorm. Now, for his wife, they cut out a wall and made it a two-bedroom and made it a little bigger for entertainment and living space. And he still has his houses. But he lives in the dorm across the street from where we host the Popecast.
Wow. Jim, thanks a lot, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. We'll see. We got to revisit this in March. We'll see how it all shakes out. But it's interesting.
See how it all is. Yes, we will.
Jim Gazzolo of the American Press. We'll be back after this here on Tiger Rag Radio.
Chevy trucks have you covered when the road takes you from smooth sailing to Chevy Colorado will eat up some of the toughest terrains with 5 available drive modes. And Silverado and Silverado HD have the muscle to take you out for some serious. With multiple engine options and impressive towing, while Silverado EV is the perfect combo of performance and capability. Nice. Making it a snap to hitch up this electric truck and hit the road. Wherever the road leads, Chevy trucks are right there with you. See your Super Chevy dealers today.
And we're back with Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
All right, back here on Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealers Studio. Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director, Louisiana Radio Network. Todd Horne, Executive Editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, and now Glenn Gilbo, the editor for Tiger Rag Magazine. He joins us. He was over at the Football Operations Building where LSU players were made available for the first time since Brian Kelly was fired. Frank Wilson was promoted to interim head coach. There's a new president. There's a new chancellor. There's a new AD. All kinds of changes have occurred here. Glenn, give us an idea of what the mood is like among the players. I would imagine they're ready to play a football game, but their heads got to be spinning a little bit.
Yeah, Mansour Delane said that the first few days it was rough, but sooner or later you got to stop mourning and move on. And Frank Wilson has been he brought in this huge drum into the players meeting, and they beat the drum before every meeting, and the players were saying that kind of gets their mind off all the drama, and Wes Weeks said that it's made that meeting room their safe place where they can get away from the craziness of that first week is what they were saying. So yeah, I think they're happy to have it over with. They lost their coach and their offensive coordinator, and then they got a new coach, so that can be difficult.
Were there any offensive players there?
Let's see. Yes, Braylon Moore, the center, was there. And they talked about how they're more physical at practice, particularly interior blocking, and seven offensive linemen and players going against, or seven offensive players, including the linemen, going against 9 defenders. And they were saying, so if you get 3 or 4 yards, that's a win. And, so it's definitely more physical. They were all saying how the practices have been more physical, which might explain something about how the team was called soft throughout this season.
Did you get the overall sense that they're upbeat, and are they pretty downtrodden knowing that their season's basically over no matter what happens?
No, they seemed upbeat, man. Even players on real bad teams I've covered at LSU, where they're young, they kind of stay upbeat, at least during the interviews. But Wes Weeks was talking about how he's just got 4 games left, and whenever there's an interim coach, there's a bolt of energy. They've had meetings every day before practice. Is one thing they said they like. So, they were talking about how they feel like everything's new. They're starting over.
Talking with the editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, Glenn Gilbo. Glenn, you just posted a story over at TigerRag.com about Verge Ausberry being not only the interim athletics director, that interim tag is going to be removed and now will be the permanent athletics director. Are you surprised that decision has been made so quickly?
After the last couple of weeks, nothing surprises me. It did kind of catch me off guard, but it really makes sense. I mean, because, Verge just told us on the show tonight in the pre-taped, the taped interview that, people were asking him, who's going to be the athletic director, Well, now he can tell them who the athletic director is, or tell the coaching candidates and their agents. So that's going to make his search for a new coach much smoother. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and he deserves a job. I mean, I wrote that last week that he deserves a job. He's been on 4 coaching searches. He was kind of an assistant, not really much of a role when they hired Saban, but in the 3 searches after that, he was pretty much involved and in the know on it. So he knows how these searches go. He saw Mark Emmert pick a coach. He saw Skip Bertman pick a coach. Then he and Joe Oliva, and then he and Scott Woodward.
Hey, Glenn, have you talked to Governor Landry today? Has he given you your assignment or where you're supposed to be tomorrow?
I meet with him tomorrow morning at 8:00, and he's going to give me my assignment for the coaching search. I'm interviewing several coaches tomorrow for Governor Landry.
All right, so give the background on that. Go ahead.
Well, ask Jeff Palermo. He's the one who told me to go to the Jeff Landry press conference last week. It was a great idea because he thought Landry might talk about the coaching search. It's really amazing that there weren't other sports writers there.
Yeah,
I was the only one there, but no, I was not a plant. I went there because Jeff said it was a good idea, and it was. And actually, there was another reporter asked Landry about a news reporter asked Landry about the coaching situation before I asked a couple questions.
Yeah, no, it was wild. It was crazy. So many people have come up to me and thought it was AI. They just couldn't believe that, but that he went off how he did on Scott Woodward. But here we are. There is no more Scott Woodward, and Verge Ausberry's the guy now. Go ahead. Thanks a lot, man.
Well, he was not alone in his concerns about the contract practices of Scott Woodward, okay?
No doubt about it. We'll be back after this here on Tiger Rag Radio.
All the bases are covered. There's something for every age group in November at the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Join us for Rewild the Library on November 8th to plant a new pollinator garden. And bring the whole family to Game On at the library on November 15th to see how many games you can play in one day. From gaming to gardening and so much more, visit ebrpl.com for more details. Your East Baton Rouge Parish Library, proudly serving the community for 86 years.
Tiger Rag Radio.
The details do matter. Every step, every hand on the ground, every route, everything that we do has a purpose. We are really focused, and our attention to detail is going to be unmatched.
We're back here on Tiger Rag Radio from the Super Chevy Dealers studio, as that's probably the last time you'll hear that liner as we rejoin the show here. I just got to make sure I know who exactly is in place, Todd. I mean, it's like a revolving door over there. My goodness.
Yada, yada.
Jeff Palermo, along with the executive editor for Tiger Rag Magazine, Todd Horne, who's doing nothing apparently, and has got all the time in the world. But
well, I'll tell you one thing I did do. Sunday afternoon, I read Wilson Alexander's column in the Advocate, where he sat down with 15 anonymous staffers, some current, some former, maybe a couple players, and he got the lowdown on what the Brian Kelly era, how it crumbled, and we're going to get to talk to him about that. If he's with us right now, right? Okay.
Hey, Wilson, are you there?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yes. It's so great to hear your voice. First of all, before we get into your great article that was in the Sunday Advocate, Tiger Rag certainly extends its thoughts and prayers to you and your family over the loss of your wife. Just such a horrible thing, and we're praying for you and hoping that you find comfort in some way. But I know you're going through a difficult time.
Well, I appreciate y'all saying that. Actually, originally did not expect to come back to work until this week. I'm really thankful that the Advocate gave me as much time off as I really wanted, and I was going to take more, but LSU had other plans for us. The past 10 days have been crazy. So,
yeah, I know.
But thank you all again for saying that, and I really do appreciate it.
Well, and when a good story breaks, a good reporter wants to go attack it, and that's exactly what you've done, especially with this article. What do you, when you put this together, and I would imagine you probably could have wrote a heck of a lot more than what was eventually published. But what's the common theme that comes out to you? What was something that just continuously, a word or maybe a phrase that kept coming to you when you talked to the various people that have been involved in the program when Brian Kelly was the head coach?
Let's see, a word or a phrase. A few things come to mind. Too detached comes to mind. Unable to connect with enough people comes to mind. And never really fully grasping or doing what a head coach in the SEC probably needs to as a recruiter. That was a common theme as well. And I say, enough people and detached at times and too detached to a lot of people's liking, because in the course of reporting the story, I mean, there were people who said like they didn't, dislike Brian Kelly, at least these certain people, and that they didn't think he was necessarily a bad guy or anything, that when they did have conversations with him, they enjoyed them, but that a lot of people who I spoke to found all of that to be too far and, too far in between, like just didn't get enough, didn't see enough of him. And then as a result, really came away with the feeling for a lot of people that he didn't embrace things down here, and certainly the way he needed to. And then what that I think kind of ended up doing, as I understand it, is as this season started to unravel and LSU decision makers got more and more restless, he didn't have allies in order that could have maybe protected him and kept him as the coach longer because he hadn't built up those kinds of relationships.
Wilson, whenever you look back on the 4 years that Kelly was here, from your own personal perception, I mean, I know you covered him the whole time. I mean, there's probably no one here in Baton Rouge that had more face time, that I would think, than you did. Did any of the things that you learned in those interviews with the staffers shock you more than anything else, that you were frankly surprised to hear? Like maybe whenever a certain defensive lineman was in, deciding whether to go to the NFL or come back, and if I remember correctly, Kelly didn't know his phone number to call him. Just things like that.
Yeah, that was certainly surprising that, with Mason Smith, as you're referencing, I'm not surprised that he didn't have Mason Smith's phone number, frankly, because I think it would probably be hard for a head coach to have the phone number of every single player on the team ready to go. You probably should. But what I also found surprising about that story is that he did not think, he was not the one to think about calling him, that it was suggested to him, and he's like, yeah, that's a good idea. We should do that. Shouldn't you think to go ahead and call the player yourself who is deciding whether or not to come back, and who you have at that time had said publicly, I think, how much they thought that it felt confident about keeping their defensive linemen, and then they didn't keep any of them who were deciding on the draft, with Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo and such. So that was surprising for sure. I mean, we always knew that Kelly had the CEO style hands-off approach. I think to hear to the extent that he was hands-off was what probably surprised me. Like one current staff member saying that it was kind of like this joke about where's Waldo, and one other current staffer saying that for the first 4 weeks of him being here at LSU, he did not see Brian Kelly, and how he said maybe he was in the building, but I just never saw him. And because there was sort of this sense, talking to a few different people who felt this way, that Kelly was just sort of sequestered off in his office. He wasn't mingling around in the weight room or with players and staff quite the way that he needed to. They didn't have staff meetings to the extent that some other schools have them, like full staff meetings where you set this sort of clear direction. And, and some people thought that they appreciated Kelly, that he wasn't micromanaging them. But it seemed like in time, and when you take a step back and look at it holistically, he needed to at least, even if you're not micromanaging them, you need to be putting in more face time with them. And I think to the extent at which some people felt like that was not happening enough is probably what surprised me.
Wilson, what do you think happened here? Because, I mean, this guy was the active winningest coach in college football. And the one thing that was missing from his resume was a national championship. And you would think that he would be going to the ends of the earth to try to get that done. Did he just think he would show up and it would happen magically? Or did the amount of money all of a sudden that he had, and he was well compensated at Notre Dame too, but all of a sudden just more money, and you kind of maybe softens you a little bit? What do you think happened here with him?
That's something I was asking myself a lot and asking other people throughout the course of reporting this story was, he had been successful for a long time. Why couldn't he do it to the level that LSU expects here? And what it seemed to be was that Kelly brought in this, he has this CEO style, and as we already talked about, it becomes very hands-off. But when you have that style, you've got to hit on your assistant coach hires. You got to have a really good offense coordinator, a really good defense coordinator, even though Kelly was much more heavily involved in the offense than he was on the defense. And for year after year, there has been an issue with the staff that they've then had to address after the season by making a firing, or even in the case of this season, mid-season, firing Joe Sloan. And even when we came out of last year, there was questions about Sloan and his ability to do the job. I think that is one of the big things that sunk him ultimately, was just this inability to put a good staff around him on both sides of the ball or in all three phases at one time. Because it was I think of it like whack-a-mole. They were always trying to hit something different that was popping up as an issue. And I think then as well,
one of the things is, and then now this isn't, and a lot of that is from talking to people. And then my own view on it is it did just seem that he came to LSU thinking he was going to put his structure in place, the one that he had developed for 30 years as a head coach, this thing that he felt was tried and true, and that it was going to just be able to then bring in the talent that you can get from recruiting in the SEC and in Louisiana in particular, blend those two things together, and it was going to just take off. And that's where I think when people in the story said how he brought in structure, but it was a disconnect between the LSU identity and the identity of the head coach, like that's where I think things faltered as well, where like he just maybe he thought that was going to happen, and it didn't, obviously, within the past 4 years.
Wilson, do you believe that, based on everything you just said and what you learned and what your own perceptions were, that there was a little bit of possibly hubris that set in, with Kelly, where he was maybe a little bit thinking he was above the fray?
I think that's a good word for it, yes. That was actually something that I mentioned on our LSU podcast that we had the other day. I think there certainly was some hubris that this was going to work because it was always how he had done it, and he didn't come in and sort of have the humility to understand that he maybe needed to do something differently specifically at LSU to make LSU work for him.
Was there I know we're running out of time, and I wanted to thank you again for coming and joining us. I always enjoy having you. But the disconnect between him and Scott Woodward that apparently occurred maybe even earlier than we thought, was that related to some type of meddlesome actions by Woodward? Did you hear anything about this?
Yeah, I mean, I know that I think you're referencing a lot of what Ross Dellinger and maybe The Athletic reported, or maybe it's from somewhere else. I didn't come across all of that quite as much in my own reporting. I'll just say that, I know Scott was heavily involved in a lot of the decisions with the staff after the 2023 season. I'm not exactly sure how Brian Kelly felt about some of those things, but Woodward was certainly involved, and he was often spotted in Austin Thomas's office over the past year and a half or so, ever since Austin came in, more so than within Brian Kelly's office. Like he liked to sit in with Austin and look at all the things that Austin was doing with the roster. So, but I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question past that.
Right, and that's interesting though, because if I'm not mistaken, Austin Thomas was hired and directly reported to Scott Woodward.
Yes, I mean, they would often say that Austin, acted upon what the head coach was looking for, and all of that was sort of the thing that they would always say publicly. But it was Scott Woodward definitely had a hand in bringing him back from Ole Miss. That was has been kind of one of his guys, and Austin has referred to him as a mentor and all that. Now, Austin would tell you that he and Brian Kelly, that they had a good working relationship in all of those things, and that Austin was trying to execute the vision of the head coach. But there was certainly Woodward certainly had an influence on things.
Do you? Go ahead, Scott. Jeff. Go ahead.
Todd.
Do you believe that Brian Kelly really believed this was the best roster he ever had at LSU, and that was just a significant miss on his part?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to believe him when he said it over and over and over again. It wasn't just a one-time thing. And I mean, I remember sitting with him discussing spring practice coming up. It had not even practiced yet. And he told me this roster can go, like we can go and win an SEC championship. And this is, talking about how good this roster was. And that one of the things he said that time was, in the past, we didn't have that. He, I think, genuinely believed this was the best roster that he had. And clearly it was not, it has not played up to the level of talent, which has been really confusing for some donors who contributed quite a bit of money to this roster, why it has not played to that level.
Great reporting. We appreciate it. Glad to see you're back, Wilson, and we'll find out what happens. We'll see what shoe drops tomorrow. You never know.
You got any predictions?
Predictions on the head coach?
No, the Alabama game.
Oh, I think LSU is going to lose, and that will be by multiple scores.
All right. Okay. All right. That's good. All right, Wilson. Thanks a lot, man. Have a good night. We appreciate it. Get some sleep.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a good one.
All right, Wilson Alexander from The Advocate. We got a couple more segments of Tiger Rag Radio, so stay tuned from the Super Chevy Dealer Studio.
Now more Tiger Rag Radio, live from Super Chevy Dealers Studio.
Good stuff there from Wilson Alexander. And again, go to The Advocate or NOLA.com. Check it out if you didn't get a chance to see it. It was published Sunday, titled Brian Kelly or Kelly's Downfall. Jeff Palermo along with Todd Horne and Andre Champagne. And one of the things that I always thought with Brian Kelly was you just, and I think I've said it on the show maybe once or twice, you just don't see many head football coaches beyond 60 years old that's successful in college football right now. And I always wondered, and it did seem like he was trying to adjust to the times, but he obviously wasn't very involved in it.
Well, yeah, I would completely agree with you, Jeff. And the conversations that I've had with Kelly was it was before the 2024 season, and there was a lot of complaining about the NIL era and where it was going, which, you can understand a coach's frustration about having to change what you've done for, 30-something years. But, you don't see coaches like Lane Kiffin complaining about, what's going on, especially at a school like Ole Miss, right? He's doing what he can with the resources that he's given. And with a place like LSU, he was given those resources. I think a big part of it was, what Wilson kind of had in his reporting was, he wasn't as hands-on with the recruiting, which is a big deal of it. And so I think he got a little aggravated that he did have to, put in a little more effort into, contacting those kids every single day, which, he told me he had a third phone, that he had 3 phones, right? And he contacted these guys, and he was saying, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of, talking, it blows up every day is basically what he was saying. But, you have to, as a CEO, right, which was what he was, you would think that he would be a little more hands-on with something like this. But he was really aggravated at what these kids were asking for in high school, not only in high school, but from the portal, right? They had kids that were asking for, 6-figure numbers, which is crazy to hear as a coach. But in a time where, that defensive line was really bad for LSU a couple years ago, he refused to go after a kid because of the amount that he asked for.
Well, be more candid, because you had a very interesting dinner conversation with him where he was having a few cocktails, and he said something very specific. You don't have to repeat the exact wording because I don't think it's allowed.
Yeah, right. FCC guidelines would not allow that, but that could be the the liquor talking. But he definitely there was a kid that asked him for $1 million, and he rightfully said and to put it in nice words, he said screw that kid, basically. And the thing is like you have to know that it's really not what these kids. It's nowadays in the NIL era, they have a lot of people in their ears as high school recruits. They're telling them, hey, take this money, right? Like this has never been done before, right? And so I think Kelly was pretty frustrated with just where college football was going. I think he made a comment about he couldn't blame Saban for leaving college football in a time like this because it's just crazy. He was just saying it was crazy.
It is interesting, Jeff and Andre, because he did talk about that earlier this season, that he felt like he could have never envisioned himself actually coaching in an environment like this, but he felt like he had adjusted to it.
Yeah.
And apparently he was not correct, or he was somewhat delusional.
No. And he tried to give it off like he had it all under control, but he didn't. Let's take our final break. More last segment of Tiger Rag Radio when we come back.
You should call that radio station and let him have it.
Good idea. 1-800-673-5555.
I want to be under the bright lights. I want to be on the Broadway stage.
Tiger Rag Radio is on now.
I don't think we've had a show that has flown by more than this one with so much going on. So we've barely talked about the game Saturday, LSU and Alabama. Todd, how do you think the Tigers will play?
Well, Wilson thinks they're going to lose by multiple scores, meaning LSU will lose by multiple scores. I'm going to say that I think Alabama is really good. I think Simpson at quarterback is the best quarterback in the country right now. LSU's defensive secondary is going to have to play a great game, and Frank Wilson's going to have to get that running game going for LSU to have a chance. If all those things happen, then LSU has a chance because this is not your typical great Alabama team, but I do think they're at least 10 points better than LSU.
I think it's going to be an inspired effort. Is it going to be enough to pull off the upset Saturday night in Tuscaloosa? I don't think so, but who knows? Who would have thought 2 weeks ago LSU would have a new AD and a new or an interim head football coach? So crazier things to happen. I got to thank everyone involved in this show. Man, it was a really good show. Started off with Verge, Ausberry, and then Mike Rodak, Jim Gazzolo, and Wilson Alexander. For Glenn Gilbo, Andre Champagne, Todd Horne, I'm Jeff Palermo. For the latest in LSU sports, check out TigerRag.com.
Tiger Rag is everywhere. Online at TigerRag.com. Like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/TigerRag Magazine. Or follow us on Twitter at Tiger_Rag.